You are probably standing in your kitchen right now, or maybe you are sitting on the couch with a bag of something salty, listening to the hum of your refrigerator. It is a quiet, comforting sound, isn't it? That low, electric drone is the heartbeat of the modern world. It is the sound of absolute security. For the first time in the 300,000-year history of our species, we have solved the problem of the empty stomach. We have successfully engineered a world where the sun never sets on our calories. You can walk into a brightly lit room at 3 in the morning and find cold protein, crisp vegetables, and sugary drinks waiting behind a magnetic seal. We have treated hunger like a disease, and we have spent the last century curing it with such efficiency that we now live in a state of permanent, biological summer. We are the most fed humans to ever walk the earth. We are also, paradoxically, some of the most systemically inflamed, metabolically confused, and chronically ill. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we have finally provided the body with everything it could possibly need, why does the body seem to be breaking down faster than ever? The answer is buried in a paradox that sounds like a cruel joke of evolution. Our ancestors, those lean, tireless people who survived ice ages and droughts, didn't just survive despite their hunger, they thrived because of it. For most of human history, starving wasn't a tragedy, it was a scheduled maintenance window. When the hunt failed or the berries ran thin, their bodies didn't just wither away. Instead, a billion-year-old survival circuit flipped a switch. Inside their cells, a cleaning crew that had been dormant during the feast suddenly woke up, grabbed their mops, and started scrubbing. They were entering a state of cellular renewal that we, in our world of unlimited snacks, have almost entirely forgotten how to access. We have spent our lives building the house, but we have never once stopped to take out the trash. But what if the very thing we fear most, the sensation of an empty stomach, is actually the only time our bodies are truly allowed to heal? To understand how this works, we have to look at a quiet, modest scientist named Yoshinori Ohsumi. In 2016, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded to Ohsumi for his work on a process that sounds like a horror movie title, autophagy. The word literally translates from Greek as self-eating. It sounds terrifying, like the body is consuming itself in a fit of desperation, but Ohsumi discovered that it is actually the ultimate form of biological recycling. When a cell realizes that no new nutrients are coming in, it doesn't just give up. It starts looking around its own internal environment for spare parts. It finds misfolded proteins, damaged organelles, and broken bits of DNA, the cellular equivalent of old, rusted car parts taking up space in a garage. The cell bags this junk up, dissolves it, and turns it into energy and fresh building blocks. It is a deep, systemic spring cleaning. But here is the catch that Ohsumi's work made clear: the cleaning crew only shows up when the kitchen is closed. If you keep sending in new supplies every 3 hours, the cell stays in growth mode. It never feels the pressure to recycle. It just keeps piling the old junk in the corners, and over decades, that junk becomes the foundation of aging and disease. So, if our cells are capable of this miraculous self-repair, why do we feel so physically insulted by the idea of missing a single meal? It's because we have spent our entire lives training our bodies to be sugar burners. We are like a hybrid car that has a massive, high-efficiency battery in the trunk, but we've forgotten how to plug it in, so we just keep frantically looking for a gas station every 20 miles. That battery is our stored body fat, and the gas is the glucose from our last meal. Our ancestors were metabolic gymnasts. They could switch from burning sugar to burning fat with seamless ease. They had to. When the food ran out, their brains didn't fog up and their muscles didn't waste away immediately. Instead, they became sharper, more focused, and more energetic. They were fueled by a cleaner, more stable energy source. And as they burned that fat, their autophagy levels skyrocketed. They weren't just surviving the famine. They were using the famine to strip away the weak parts of their biology. But does this mean our modern abundance is actually a biological trap? Think about your body like a construction site. When there is an unlimited supply of wood, brick, and steel arriving every hour, the workers are in a frenzy. They are building, expanding, and piling up materials. This is great if you're a growing child, but if you're an adult, you don't need a bigger house. You need a house that doesn't leak. In our biology, this build signal is controlled by a protein complex called mTOR, which stands for mechanistic target of rapamycin. When we eat, especially protein and carbohydrates, mTOR is the foreman shouting, grow, build, multiply. It is an incredible system, but when mTOR is always on, the body never transitions into the repair phase. This constant growth is linked to almost every modern ailment we fear, from the uncontrolled cell division of cancer to the protein plaques that clutter the brain in Alzheimer's disease. Walter Longo, a leading biogerontologist at the University of Southern California, has spent decades proving that by periodically shutting off this growth signal through fasting, we can actually reboot the immune system. His research, published in journals like Cell Metabolism, showed that a prolonged fast can force the body to kill off old, inefficient immune cells and replace them with shiny new ones from stem cells. It's like hitting the factory reset button on your biology. But if this process is so fundamental, how did our ancestors manage to stay so strong without a lab or a Nobel Prize to guide them? The answer lies in the dirt and the distance. To see the ancient human body in action today, researchers often look to the Hadza people of Tanzania. The Hadza are one of the last true hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, and they don't have refrigerators or pantry shelves. Anthropologists like Frank Marlowe and more recently Herman Pontzer have studied their lives in meticulous detail. The Hadza don't eat on a schedule. They eat when they find something. Some days they might gorge on honey and berries. Other days, they might walk 20 kilometers in the searing heat and find absolutely nothing. They are in a constant state of metabolic flux. Pontzer's research, famously detailed in his book Burn, revealed something that shocked the Western world. Despite their incredible physical activity, the Hadza don't actually burn significantly more calories per day than a sedentary office worker in Ohio. Their bodies have become incredibly efficient. But more importantly, the Hadza are almost entirely free of the diseases that kill us. They don't have obesity, they don't have type 2 diabetes, and their cardiovascular health remains pristine well into their 70s and 80s. They are lean, they are strong, and they are essentially metabolically flexible. They live in a world of feast and famine, and their bodies use both states to maintain a perfect equilibrium. But if the Hadza are the gold standard for human health, does that mean our modern sedentary lifestyle is a death sentence, or is there a middle ground? We like to think of starvation as a slow decline into weakness, but for the human brain, hunger is a high-octane fuel. From an evolutionary perspective, if you are hungry and your brain gets foggy and slow, you are going to die. You won't find food. Evolution demanded the opposite. When the stomach is empty, the brain must be at its peak. This is why hunger triggers the release of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Scientists call it miracle grow for the brain. It encourages the growth of new neurons and strengthens the connections between existing ones. Mark Mattson, a former chief of the Laboratory of Neurosciences at the National Institute on Aging, has published numerous studies showing that intermittent fasting can protect the brain from neurodegenerative diseases. By forcing the brain to operate without a constant stream of glucose, we force it to become more resilient. Our ancestors weren't just toughing it out when they were hungry, they were entering a state of heightened cognitive performance. They were becoming smarter because they had to. They were solving the puzzle of survival with a brain that was being bathed in natural growth factors. But if hunger makes us smarter and stronger, why does every fiber of our modern culture tell us to avoid it at all costs? It's because we've confused comfort with safety. We have built a world where any deviation from a full state is interpreted by our lizard brains as a crisis. But the data from the animal kingdom suggests our comfort is making us old. Consider the famous rhesus monkey studies conducted at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the National Institute on Aging. For over 30 years, researchers tracked two groups of monkeys. One group could eat as much as they wanted, the standard American diet version of monkey life. The other group had their calories restricted by 30%. The results, published in Nature Communications, were staggering. The calorie-restricted monkeys didn't just live longer, they lived younger. At an age where the normally fed monkeys were losing their hair, getting hunchbacks, and suffering from diabetes and cancer, the restricted monkeys looked like they were in their prime. They had shiny coats, vibrant energy, and significantly lower rates of age-related disease. They weren't starving in the sense of being malnourished. They were simply living in a state of permanent, slight underfeeding. This triggered their survival circuits for 3 decades. It turns out that in the biological world, the reward for having less is often being more. But how do we translate the life of a lab monkey or a Hadza hunter into a world filled with pizza delivery and office birthdays? We look to the blue zones, the places on Earth where people live the longest, healthiest lives. In Okinawa, Japan, there is a famous cultural practice called hara hachibu. It is a Confucian teaching that instructs people to eat until they are only 80% full. It sounds simple, almost too simple to be a longevity secret, but it is a built-in cultural brake on the Mtera system. By never fully topping off the tank, Okinawans ensure that their bodies are never overwhelmed by the growth signal. They live in a state of perpetual light repair. For decades, the elderly in Okinawa had some of the lowest rates of heart disease and stroke in the world. They were centenarians who could still sit on the floor, tend their gardens, and play with their great-great-grandchildren. They weren't following a complicated biohacking protocol. They were simply respecting the biological necessity of not enough. They were proof that you don't have to be a caveman to benefit from the power of the empty stomach. You just have to be willing to be a little bit hungry. But is it possible that our modern obsession with 3 square meals a day is actually the weirdest experiment in human history? Think about the sheer logistics of your ancestors' lives. If you lived 50,000 years ago, your breakfast was probably a long walk to a watering hole. Your lunch was whatever tubers you could dig up or leftover scraps from a kill. Your dinner was never guaranteed. We evolved in a world of pulses, bursts of activity followed by rest, bursts of eating followed by waiting. Our DNA is literally written in the language of these cycles. When we flatten those cycles into a straight line of constant consumption, we broke the rhythm of our own repair. We are like a song that consists of only one note played at maximum volume forever. It's not just that we are eating too much, it's that we are eating too often. We have eliminated the gaps. And it is in those gaps, those quiet, hungry hours between the hunt and the feast, that our DNA is patched, our proteins are recycled, and our immune systems are sharpened. We are the only animals on Earth that have tried to live without the off switch. And the bill for that experiment is coming due in the form of rising rates of chronic illness. But if the problem is the lack of gaps, can we simply choose to put them back? The beauty of this biological reality is that it doesn't require a gym membership or a specialized supplement. It only requires a shift in how we perceive the sensation of hunger. When your stomach growls at 4 in the afternoon, it's not a signal that you are about to die. It's a signal that the maintenance crew is finally trying to clock in. If you can wait, even for an hour, you are giving your cells a gift that no medicine can provide. You are allowing the self-eating process of autophagy to do its work. You are letting your brain produce its own miracle grow. You are leaning into a 300,000-year-old inheritance. Our ancestors didn't want to be hungry, of course, they wanted the feast. But their bodies were designed to handle the weight, and in that waiting, they found a level of metabolic resilience that we are only now beginning to understand. We have the incredible luxury of choosing when to be hungry, a choice our ancestors never had. We can use the fridge when we need it, but we can also choose to let the light stay off. Does it feel strange to realize that the most powerful thing you can do for your health today might be to do absolutely nothing at all? When you look at the modern landscape of health advice, it is often a cacophony of more. Eat more superfoods, take more vitamins, do more high-intensity workouts. But the deep, ancient wisdom of our biology suggests that the real answer might be less. Less frequency, less volume, less constant stimulation. We are built for the struggle, and we are built for the recovery that follows it. When we remove the struggle, we also remove the recovery. We become like a muscle that never lifts anything heavy, we atrophy. But it's not a physical atrophy, it's a cellular one. Our internal systems become flabby and inefficient because they are never challenged. The ancient humans who lived longer weren't supernatural, They were just in constant communication with their environment. Their bodies were constantly receiving signals from the world that said, "The food is gone, it's time to get tough." And their bodies responded. Ours are waiting for that same signal, but it never comes. We just keep opening the fridge. The tragedy of the modern world is that we have mistaken the signal for the problem. We think hunger is the problem, so we solve it with a snack. But hunger is actually the signal for repair. By silencing the signal, we are preventing the repair. It's like cutting the wires to a smoke detector because the beeping is annoying. The beeping isn't the problem, the fire is. And in our case, the fire is the slow accumulation of cellular damage that we call aging. We have become so afraid of the beeping of an empty stomach that we are letting the house burn down one cell at a time. But the fire can be put out. The repair crew is still there, sitting in the break room of your DNA, waiting for the conveyor belt of food to finally stop so they can get to work. They don't need instructions. They don't need a diet plan. They just need you to wait. They have been doing this since before we were even human. They know how to save us. We just have to let them. It is a strange thought, isn't it? That in a world of unimaginable technology and medical breakthroughs, the ultimate biohack is simply the absence of something. We are so used to adding things to our lives to make them better, new gadgets, new foods, new habits. But perhaps the most profound change we can make is a subtraction. By subtracting a few hours of eating, we add years of cellular health. By subtracting the constant on switch of inter, we add the repair switch of autophagy. It's a biological accounting system where the less you put in, the more you get out. Our ancestors were the unintentional masters of this math. They lived in the negatives and they thrived there. We live in the positives and we are struggling. But the math hasn't changed. The equations that govern the health of a hunter on the savannah 50,000 years ago are the exact same equations governing your body as you listen to this. The biology is the same. Only the environment has changed. And while we can't go back to the savannah, we can certainly choose to close the pantry door. Think about the next time you feel that familiar, restless urge to eat when you aren't actually hungry. It's usually not your body asking for nutrients. It's your brain asking for a hit of dopamine to break the boredom. It's the habit of the fridge light. In that moment, you are at a crossroads. You can follow the modern path of constant growth, or you can take the ancient path of repair. You can be the sugar burner who needs a constant fix, or you can be the fat burner who carries a week's worth of energy in their own tissues. It is a quiet, internal revolution. It doesn't require a protest or a lifestyle overhaul. It just requires a little bit of patience and a new respect for the empty space in your day. Our ancestors survived the unimaginable because their bodies were built to find strength in scarcity. We have the chance to use that same strength to survive our own abundance. It's almost funny in a dark sort of way. We spent thousands of generations dreaming of a world where no one would ever have to go hungry again. We finally built it. We conquered the famine. We filled the silos and the supermarkets and the refrigerators until they were bursting at the seams. And then, once we were finally safe, we looked at the data and realized that the very thing we had escaped was the thing that kept us whole. We are like the protagonist in a myth who finally gets exactly what they wished for, only to realize the wish was a curse. But the curse only exists if we refuse to see it. If we can acknowledge that the feast requires the fast, and the growth requires the repair, then we can have both. We can live in the modern world with an ancient resilience. We can have the security of the fridge and the strength of the hunter. We just have to be brave enough to feel a little bit of what they felt every single day. So, the next time you find yourself standing in the kitchen at 10 p.m., looking at the leftovers, I want you to remember the Hadza. Remember the rhesus monkeys. Remember Yoshinori Osumi and his recycling cells. You aren't missing out on a snack. You are opting into a 300,000-year-old maintenance program. You are letting your body do the one thing it was designed to do best: survive. You are giving your cells the quiet they need to hear the signal to repair. It is a small thing, a mundane thing, to just walk away and go to bed. But in the microscopic world of your biology, it is a grand, sweeping act of renewal. It is the sound of the cleaning crew finally picking up their mops. It is the heartbeat of a longer, cleaner life. And it's all waiting for you, right there in the empty hours. If you've ever wondered why we all feel so sluggish despite eating more than any other generation, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think we've traded our biological edge for a little bit of convenience? It's a question that stays with me every time I see a new health trend that's actually just a very old survival strategy. If this deep dive into our metabolic history was useful, I'd be honored to have you join us for the next one. We explore these kinds of biological rabbit holes every week, and there's always room for one more curious mind in the circle. Our ancestors didn't have a choice in the matter. The world was a harsh, empty place that forced them into a state of constant, cellular perfection. They walked through the long, hungry silence of history with bodies that were sharpened by the very lack of everything we now take for granted. We have finally silenced that hunger, and in doing so, we have accidentally silenced the most powerful healing mechanism we possess. We have built a world that is comfortable, well-fed, and safe, yet we are decaying in the midst of our own plenty. We have finally achieved the dream of the never-ending feast, and we are discovering far too late that the feast is what eventually kills you. The fridge is always full, the light is always on, and the cleaning crew has been waiting at the door for a century. They are still there, standing in the shadows, waiting for the one thing we refuse to give them. They are waiting for the hunger that made us human. Sleep well tonight, and if you can, try to ignore the hum of the refrigerator. It has been lying to you about what your body needs to survive. The most dangerous thing in your house isn't the darkness or the cold. It is the light that never goes out.